Do we live in a simulation? We sorta do, but how can we hack that simulation to achieve our goals? Welcome to Inner Warrior, where I help pop culture fans with tips and tools to help unleash their inner warrior and achieve their goals. So what did I mean by saying we sort of live in a simulation? I mean, we do or we don't, right? Not exactly. In the Matrix, the computer world is a simulation that uses our minds, linked to a machine, to keep us all in a technological shared dream. The world is rendered like a computer game, like the game Mr. Anderson created in The Matrix Resurrections. And strangely, our world is sort of like that too. A computer game uses optimization techniques to make use of limited resources, such as rendering or generating the 3D environment only when needed. As the player moves through a 3D environment, what the player will come across is rendered as they draw near. This way, the computer doesn't have to use all its resources to render the whole massive 3D environment the whole time. The research of theoretical physicist and Nobel Prize winner Max Planck was further built upon by Albert Einstein, which led to us understanding that light is made of discrete units of energy that were later named photons. Photons are massless and move at the speed of light, and photons have a defined amount of energy that it carries based on the frequency of the wave it travels. This is called the Planck constant. This means that you can't get any smaller than Planck's constant as a photon. Other quantum particles are similar types of tiny units, such as electrons. Think of quanta as the pixels that make up our universe. But what does that have to do with our reality rendering? Well, ever heard of wave-particle duality? It basically means that quantum particles, such as photons, exist as an electromagnetic wave of possibilities until forced into making a choice and becoming a photon particle. This test of the wave-particle duality has even been done using satellites in space, where a beam of light was sent to space and back, having been a wave all the way up until a little more than halfway back to Earth, where it was forced to become a particle once it reached a detector at the end of its journey. What forces the quantum particles to actually shift from a wave of possibilities into a specific particle? An observation or measurement of the quantum particles. By measuring the quantum particles go through decoherence, or simply stated, the quantum wave of possibility particles lose their possibility to become a fact instead, and they act more like traditional particles we could accurately measure. This decoherence due to observation can be seen as the rendering of the world's quanta pixels from possible code to distinct 3D models. Decoherence is the real-world version of rendering. Strange, huh? Almost as strange as those mirror scenes in The Matrix. Also, computers have defined speeds of processing data called clock speed. What is the clock speed of the universe? Well, it's the same top speed of the quanta of the universe, the speed of light. If life is a giant, massively multiplayer online game like World of Warcraft, where we are each a player, wouldn't each of our experiences be a bit different? Like, what if you and I were in different factions? Or on different quests? Or, for example, Neo and Trinity in The Matrix Resurrections. Even when Neo found his way in The Matrix again and experienced all the insane moves that come with that, when Trinity was still unaware of The Matrix, she had a completely different experience from Neo. Well, turns out there's an explanation for that in the real world too. There's relational quantum mechanics, where two observers can get different renderings of the same quantum particles. There's also human consciousness and perception, where two people can see the same things and get very different perceptive experiences from it. In fact, our perception is the user interface of the game. Our senses help us see the world the way we do. Our reticular activating system filters that world, and our subconscious runs the program of our identity. In fact, the world we see through our senses may not even be the real world. Our senses are an evolutionary best guess as to what's out in the world. Our senses create pictures to help us understand reality and survive in it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that what we sense is actually reality. They are the interface we use to move through the world. A research article titled Objects of Consciousness by the University of California states, turning now to apply the interface metaphor to human perception. The idea is that natural selection has not shaped our perceptions to be insights into the true structure and causal nature of objective reality, but has instead shaped our perceptions to be a species-specific user interface, fashioned to guide the behaviors that we need to survive and reproduce. Space and time are the desktop of our perceptual interface, and three-dimensional objects are icons on that desktop. Our interface gives the impression that it reveals true cause and effect relations. When one billiard ball hits a second, it certainly looks as though the first causes the second to careen away, but this appearance of cause and effect is simply a useful fiction, just as it is for the icons on the computer desktop. Weird, right? We're using an interface that is then filtered through our reticular activating system and our subconscious beliefs and biases. And what if I told you that there are also error-correcting codes in reality? What exactly are error-correcting codes? Well, first off, computers at the most fundamental level use binary code, those ones and zeros you've heard so much about, one being switched on and zero being off. Sometimes those ones and zeros get messed up with extra ones or zeros, which changes the code. To make sure the code is correct, programs will usually throw in their own ones and zeros at the end of the code. This is the error-correcting code that the sender of the code and receiver of the code agree upon. The computer or program receiving the code will check the error-correcting code to make sure that it matches what it's meant to be. If those extra ones and zeros are off, then the computer or program knows to throw the whole code away and wait for it to come correctly. By the way, if you're finding this video useful, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can know when my next video comes along. So, how does reality have error-correcting codes? By using a theoretical holographic version of the universe called the anti-de Sitter space conformal field theory correspondence, or ADS-CFT, which bends spacetime in the opposite direction to create a sphere while retaining the angles of spacetime. Researchers are able to study the universe in a way that no information gets lost in the vast reaches of space. That's because all the information is contained in the sphere and can't escape it. And as the outer 2D CTF shell of the universe projects the inner 3D ADS universe using entangled quantum particles, researchers can place a black hole in the sphere and look at what happens in the quantum shell. The whole reason for this holographic model of the universe is to study black holes and, in particular, the link between quantum particles and gravity. What researchers found is that the emergence of spacetime, the inner sphere, from the quantum particles, the outer shell, act like quantum error-correcting codes that are similar to the ones being thought up to create quantum computers today. Dr. Melvin Gvopson of the University of Portsmouth recently calculated how much information exists in the universe, and even goes on to say that information itself is the fifth state of matter, along with solid, liquid, gas, and plasma. In his article in the AIP Advances journal titled Estimation of the Information Contained in the Visible Matter of the Universe, he states, in 1961, Launder first proposed a link between thermodynamics and information, demonstrating that digital information is not just an abstract mathematical entity, but is in fact physical. Later, Launder speculated that the universe could be a giant computer simulating itself, an idea further developed in the more recent studies by Lloyd. Wheeler considered the universe made up of particles, fields, and information, proposing that everything emanates from the information inherent within it, i.e., it from bit. Launder's principle and the physical nature of information has been recently demonstrated, and it also stimulated several new studies and novel concepts, including the black hole information paradox and a holographic principle, the immersion of gravity, and a quantized inertia. Other studies extrapolated the physical nature of information to estimate the mass of information, culminating with a recent publication of the mass-energy information equivalent principle, and Vopson postulated that information is the fifth form of dominant matter in the universe, along solid, liquid, gas, and plasma. Lots to unpack there, but basically, information may be the core of reality. It may be the reigning code of the matrix that we just perceive as trees, dogs, people, and planets because we needed to see it that way through our interface to survive. A scientist at the US Department of Energy's Princeton Plasma Physics Lab created a machine learning computer algorithm that accurately predicts the orbits of planets by learning from experience. They are also developing ways to predict particles of plasma in fusion experiments. The scientist, Hong Chin, was inspired by the computer simulation thought experiment by Nick Bostrom. Chin went on to say, if we live in a simulation, our world has to be discrete. As in to say that we need to be able to accurately measure the world's pixels. His paper states, in particular, the learning algorithm learns a discrete field theory from a set of data of planetary orbits, similar to what Kepler inherited from Tycho Brahe in 1601, and the serving algorithm correctly predicts other planetary orbits, including parabolic and hyperbolic escaping orbits of the solar system without learning or knowing Newton's laws of motion and universal gravitation. So, the artificially intelligent algorithm was able to use determined measurements to accurately predict planetary orbits without being told, hey AI, here are the physics laws you need to make planet orbits work correctly. That means using our quantum pixels to measure things may actually work, meaning that they may actually be pixels. So, if we are in a simulated reality like the Matrix, how can we hack this simulation to help achieve our goals? We know our user interface, our senses, and we know the program running our identity, our subconscious beliefs and biases. So in order to hack the Matrix, we need to hack ourselves. We need to become the one, like Neo, and take control of our world, which is our perception. We need to shed the identity of Thomas A. Anderson and unlock the inner warrior that is Neo. How do we do that? We need to work with our subconscious mind, visualizing the steps to our goal, and then the end goal itself. We need to physically write down our goals and break down our goals into what we can take action on now, while letting what we can't know or understand be worked on by our subconscious programming in the background. We're playing the simulation, so we may as well have fun with it and enjoy it. Remember how we said we sorta live in a simulation? That's because of my belief on whether we are in a simulation or not. I believe that we are in a simulation, but not in a quantum computer per se. I believe we are using our perception in the opposite direction. I believe we are all one universal mind playing this simulation to experience ourselves as new identities and evolve as a universe. But I think we, as humans, see that simulation as a universal quantum computer when it's really the other way around. We create computers and the concept of computer simulations to unknowingly copy the mechanics of the universal mind's simulation. So basically, our games and computers are us subconsciously trying to copy the universal mind in changing identities to experience ourselves as players with new identities, like say Batman in the Batman Arkham games or Neo in the new Matrix Awakens game that's coming out. In fact, when we visualize, we are also creating a simulation. Think of our visualizations as the modal programming sandbox that Neo created when he tested his game code. You can test out actions and realities through your visualization to learn as well. Let me know what your favorite moments from Matrix Resurrections were in the comments below. And click here to see how Spider-Man No Way Home teaches us a valuable lesson when it comes to going after our goals. Or click here to see the power of your mind and how to use it to attract your goals to you.